After we announced my pregnancy, my sister-in-law's scheme to disgrace me at my husband's party backfired, landing her in jail and ending her marriage. For the past 7 years, I, 29F, have been happily married to Harry, except for one persistent problem: his sister, Kayla. She is the source of all negativity in our lives. While I cherish my marriage, dealing with her has been exhausting. At first, I genuinely liked Kayla, but my perception of her changed quickly. She is toxic, manipulative, and overwhelmingly pessimistic. Aware of her nature, I've made an effort to stay on her good side over the years. Kayla has a strange obsession with controlling Harry's love life. When he was 17, he briefly dated her best friend, but later ended things because he felt pressured into the relationship. Years later, when he was 23 and single again, Kayla tried to set him up with another friend. When he refused, she threw a tantrum and ran to their parents, demanding that he marry someone she approved of. Fortunately, their parents didn't take her side. While Harry and I were falling in love, his parents were supportive, but Kayla was cold and distant. She constantly brought up Harry's ex-girlfriends in my presence, praising their success and subtly suggesting he reconnect with them. This pattern continued for a long time. Even Harry found her behavior odd and asked her to stop, but she reacted angrily, accusing me of being jealous and insisting that Harry deserved someone better. Kayla took her obsession even further. Whenever we had family dinners, she would conveniently invite one of Harry's exes, claiming she ran into them and couldn't resist extending an invitation. She also stalked my Instagram despite not following me. She was always the first to view my stories. If a man ever commented on my photos, she would immediately report to Harry, accusing me of being inappropriate. When Harry and I decided to move in together, Kayla went into full sabotage mode. She tried to convince him to break up with me, listing all my supposed flaws and assuring him she could find someone more suitable. Despite my efforts to remain cordial, her words deeply hurt me. Her hostility intensified when we got engaged. While everyone celebrated our happy news, Kayla sat in silence before suddenly storming out. Later that night, she called Harry in tears, furious that she hadn't been the first to hear about our engagement. Shortly after, she sent me an unsettling message, practically warning me to treat her brother well because she had always been the only woman in his life. The possessiveness in her words sent a chill down my spine. I didn't bother responding. I just left her message on scene, which probably enraged her even more. From then on, she completely ignored me. However, for some inexplicable reason, she involved herself in all our wedding preparations. She criticized every decision I made, whether it was the decor, the guest list, or my dress. My future mother-in-law and fiancé repeatedly called her out, but she continued. One day, she overheard me discussing centerpiece options and immediately ridiculed my taste, declaring that this was why she wanted her brother to marry someone with more class. That was my breaking point. I finally snapped, told her she was no longer welcome at our wedding, and made it clear that I was done tolerating her constant insults. She was stunned, as if she never expected me to stand up to her. Even my mother-in-law supported my decision, which infuriated her further. Kayla later called Harry, complaining that I had humiliated her and demanding that he control me. To my relief, he firmly stood by me, stating that unless she sincerely apologized, she would not be invited. Begrudgingly, she sent me a half-hearted apology. Once again, I left it on read. I was too exhausted to deal with her theatrics. In the end, she did attend our wedding, but her actions were beyond inappropriate. While everyone followed the pastel color theme, Kayla arrived in a floor-length black gown and a veil, as if she were mourning. She spent the entire event telling guests how she was grieving the loss of her brother to another woman. Harry confronted her at the reception, but she doubled down, insisting that she had the right to wear whatever she pleased and accusing me of being controlling. As her dramatic antics continued, my in-laws finally had enough and ordered her to leave. It was humiliating for me, but at least the ordeal was over. Since then, I have completely avoided her. When I gave birth to our son, Nate, I made it clear that she was not allowed near him. Kayla tried to fight it, but my in-laws supported my decision, understanding exactly why I wanted her nowhere near my child. 2 years ago, she suffered a miscarriage with her then boyfriend, Jamie. It was a devastating time for everyone, and despite our rocky relationship, Harry and I felt genuinely sorry for her. Hoping she had changed, we softened our stance and allowed her to be around Nate. Surprisingly, she was kind to him, so much so that it shocked me. For a while, I thought she had turned over a new leaf. But before long, she reverted to her old ways. She constantly complained about her life, blamed everyone else for her problems, and never took responsibility for anything. In her mind, she was always the victim. And that's when I realized, some people never change. She is constantly trying to sway people to her side by playing the victim and rarely acknowledges any faults in conflicts. This year, she decided to get married and invited everyone, except us. Given that our relationship seemed to have improved, Harry was shocked to discover we weren't on the guest list. She later explained that she wouldn't allow me to attend because I would supposedly disrupt her wedding. When we questioned her about it, having never wronged her, I called to ask why she would assume such a thing. Kayla began explaining that since she had intentionally worn all black to our wedding, she feared I might retaliate in the same manner, which is why she wanted me excluded. I candidly told my husband how manipulative she was, leaving him outraged. After discussing the matter with his parents, Harry decided to inform his sister that they would neither be attending the wedding nor contributing financially. This reduced her to tears, and she started blaming me for creating this turmoil. Her husband, however, pointed out that she had no right to shift the blame onto me, as she had openly admitted her own mistake. Kayla, however, dismissed the situation, claiming I should simply move on since my wedding happened long ago. Later, she reached out to apologize and seek forgiveness, as her in-laws were still refusing to cover her wedding expenses. As much as I hate to admit it, Kayla can be incredibly persuasive when she wants something. I wanted to put the past behind me, so I forgave her. Her wedding to Jamie went off without a hitch. We all attended and even had a good time. But in less than 6 months, Kayla showed up at our doorstep, venting about her crumbling marriage. We let her stay for a few days, during which she spent endless hours complaining about her husband. They were struggling to conceive, and Kayla was adamantly blaming Jamie for everything. When I tried to talk to her, she insisted that it was entirely his fault. Instead of focusing on her marriage, she became fixated on our lives, fabricating problems that didn't exist. If she wasn't ranting about Jamie, she was prying into my daily routine. For instance, every morning before work, I hit the gym. On days when I'm running late, I grab my work clothes so I can shower and change before heading to the office. She observed this habit for a while and started bombarding me with odd questions, asking why I needed to shower or why I even bothered going to the gym. I didn't think much of it and simply told her I liked staying in shape and disliked arriving at work sweaty. She would nod and lick her lips thoughtfully. One day, while having lunch, my mother-in-law mentioned a friend who had just finalized her divorce. The woman had discovered her husband's infidelity and walked away with half of his assets. Without warning, Kayla abruptly cut her off and turned to my husband, asking if we had signed a prenuptial agreement before getting married. The room fell silent. We froze, pausing mid-bite, and stared at her. She locked eyes with my husband, seemingly ignoring my presence altogether. Harry, never one to mince words, told her matter-of-factly that since we both earned well, we never felt the need for a prenup. Kayla scoffed and proceeded to warn him that he could be blindsided at any moment, emphasizing that unfaithfulness was rampant these days. Her remarks offended me, so I asked her to clarify exactly what she meant. She then outright claimed that I was obviously seeing someone else, pointing to the fact that I often carried a change of clothes. She insisted that, as Harry's sister, it was her duty to warn him. I was stunned. My father-in-law and mother-in-law immediately stepped in, urging her to stop fabricating lies and advising her to stay out of other people's business. Without hesitation, Kayla doubled down, insisting she was only looking out for her brother. Then, in a so-called joke, she suggested that our son Nate might not even be Harry's child, since he didn't resemble him. I swear, I saw my husband's face turn red with fury. I had never seen him this enraged before. Staring Kayla dead in the eyes, he told her that she wasn't a mother because she didn't deserve to be one, and that any child of hers would be better off in heaven than being raised by someone like her. Kayla's mouth hung open in disbelief. My in-laws sat in stunned silence as my husband stormed out, cursing her for being a shameless troublemaker, desperate to ruin everything because she had nothing of value in her own life. He berated her for doing nothing all day while her husband worked tirelessly to provide. He told her, point blank, that she was merely projecting her own insecurities and should focus on fixing her marriage instead of meddling in ours. Kayla burst into tears. Desperate for support, she turned to Jamie, who was sitting right beside her. But he remained silent. My husband never loses his composure like this, but that day he had reached his breaking point. Kayla eventually fled to the bathroom in distress. My husband was still seething. I gently took his hand while my mother-in-law stepped in to calm him down. Understanding how exhausting Kayla could be, I nodded as he apologized for what his sister had said about our son. After enduring years of Kayla's antics, I was somewhat relieved that my husband finally stood up for me in such a public way. He later apologized to Jamie, but completely ignored Kayla. That day after lunch, we cut off all contact with her. Her behavior wasn't just affecting me, it was taking a toll on my husband too. We shut her out entirely, allowing her to reach out only if she ever decided to change. Later that evening, my in-laws spoke with us and agreed that Kayla had crossed the line this time. They saw firsthand how their usually reserved son had lost his temper after Kayla relentlessly pushed him. It's been over a year since we last spoke to her, and honestly, life has been peaceful ever since. I found out what I had anticipated. Given our lack of dedication, this was quite unforeseen. Welcoming another family member fills my spouse and me with gratitude. We chose to share the news on my husband's birthday, since we had been waiting for the right opportunity. Wanting to pay tribute to Harry, Mil and Fael arranged a grand celebration in their backyard. Close friends and relatives were invited. Sael made an appearance after learning about it from others. When we spotted her, my husband and I were taken aback. Approaching Harry, S embraced him and expressed how much she had missed him, apologizing for their last conversation. Holding my hand, my spouse urged his sister to show remorse toward me because she had previously questioned my integrity. SLE nodded, glanced at me, and then apologized. She shared that she had been in therapy for the past few months and had come to recognize how inappropriate her behavior had been toward me. Although I disagreed with her entirely, I simply nodded to maintain politeness in front of everyone, since this was an occasion for my husband. M and FL checked on us and assured us that if we felt uneasy, they would ask her to leave, as they were unaware she would attend. However, Harry insisted on avoiding any drama, so we decided to let it slide. It seemed odd, as S was mingling and laughing with everyone at the event. She mentioned undergoing therapy, so I wanted to give her the benefit of the doubt, even though she appeared unusually cheerful, completely unlike her. Harry gave a heartfelt speech about how he felt like the luckiest man alive, grateful for another year spent with a woman like me. When it was time to cut the cake, his words made me blush with joy, reminiscent of the early days of our relationship. I couldn't help but appreciate that my husband and I were still deeply in love. Then, Harry and I decided to share some incredible news. Smiling, we announced that we were expecting a baby. A brief silence followed before everyone erupted in excitement. My mother rushed to embrace me, tears streaming down her face, while Phil congratulated Harry and me with misty eyes. Everyone was eager to know if we had chosen baby names, their enthusiasm evident. SLE, however, stood out like a sore thumb. She looked stunned. Her expression shifted, and she turned away, seeming agitated. I assumed she was just processing the news, though a part of me worried she might ruin yet another special moment for us. I became distracted as more guests approached to chat. When I got up to help my in-laws with serving lunch, Rick and my parents insisted I remain seated, reminding me to take it easy. Seal then approached me, beaming. As I sat waiting for my husband to bring me a meal, she animatedly stated that she personally wanted to serve me dinner, claiming she was thrilled about my pregnancy. Handing me a plate, she even mentioned that she wanted to make amends for how she had mistreated me in the past. I nodded and graciously accepted it before she walked away. Just as I was about to take a bite, I noticed something alarming. She had placed shrimp on my plate. Since I am highly allergic to shrimp, I was shocked that Ciel had given it to me. Disheartened, I shook my head and got up to get my own food. At that moment, Jamie approached to congratulate me on my pregnancy. After a brief conversation, he asked why I wasn't eating. I pointed out that Ciel had served me shrimp, likely by mistake. Trying to reassure me, Jamie took the plate from my hands and said he would eat it himself since he enjoyed shrimp, allowing me to get a fresh serving. I nodded, smiled, and turned away. Minutes later, Jamie suddenly began gagging and vomiting. Alarmed, everyone stopped eating and watched as he struggled to stand. Concerned, Harry and Kayla rushed toward him. Jamie gestured toward his plate and then clutched his throat. Our eyes widened in horror as we realized something was terribly wrong. Within moments, Jamie collapsed. Gasps filled the air as panic set in. Kayla ran to examine his plate, and her face turned pale with shock. She looked at me and urgently asked if I had given her husband my food. I nodded. Amid the chaos, someone called for an ambulance, and Jamie was rushed to the hospital. Kayla sobbed uncontrollably, glaring at me in distress. Later, we received devastating news. Jamie had been poisoned. Learning that the plate had originally belonged to me made my heart sink. The thought that whatever Jamie had consumed could have poisoned both my unborn baby and me was terrifying. At that point, neither Harry, Amiel, Fael, nor my parents were aware of this horrifying reality. No one knew what had been in the food that caused Jamie to collapse. The police were called to collect evidence. Jamie is still recuperating in the hospital as I write this. Kayla stayed by his side overnight. Relatives have been calling nonstop, trying to understand what happened to Jamie and who could have possibly poisoned him, leaving my husband and me handling countless inquiries. The entire situation has deeply unsettled Amiel and Phil. They are currently staying at our home, too afraid to return to theirs. No one can comprehend how such a dreadful incident unfolded so suddenly when everything had been going so smoothly. The fact that the tainted plate was initially meant for me and that Kayla was the one who handed it over fills me with overwhelming fear. If this escalates into a full-blown investigation, I will have no choice but to be completely honest with the authorities. Above all, I am now deeply troubled about what my Ciel might be capable of. The mere thought of her terrifies me. I can't bear to be anywhere near her, and I certainly won't allow my children to be around her either. She clearly has no limits when it comes to harming me. I also can't shake the guilt of passing my plate to Jamie, unknowingly putting him in danger. Update 1. Wow. I can't believe how many responses this post has received in just a few hours. Thousands of comments. I never imagined this situation would garner so much attention. When I originally wrote this, my hands were trembling. I haven't been able to sleep. Although many of you have reassured me, I still feel partially responsible for what happened to Jamie. I should have just discarded the food instead of allowing him to take it. I keep replaying the moment in my head, questioning why I didn't stop him. The thought of what could have happened to him, and what almost happened to me, haunts me. My husband has been staying close, trying to comfort me, but he doesn't know what I know about his sister. He assumes I'm simply distressed about the entire situation. Many people have suggested I have a calm, serious conversation with everyone, and I agree, though I'm unsure whether they will believe me. Fortunately, Amiel and Phil have security cameras installed all over their property. Since the party took place in their backyard, I'm confident they can review the footage and confirm that Kayla was the one who gave me the plate. I'll talk to them tonight. Update 2. We had the conversation, and I cannot express how grateful I am for having such incredible in-laws. Since Amiel and Phil were already staying with us, I decided to sit down with them and my husband over dinner to share something crucial. I took a deep breath, feeling the crushing weight of the situation on my shoulders. As everyone gathered around, I recounted the events of the party, how Ciel had deliberately given me a plate of shrimp, and how Jamie unknowingly ate from it, leading to his reaction. Their expressions mirrored my own shock and disbelief. Amiel and Phil exchanged anxious glances, and my husband's face shifted from confusion to pure fury. I continued, voicing my growing fears about Ciel's intentions and how this wasn't the first time she had tried to harm me. But with the potential consequences for myself and our unborn child, I had hesitated to speak up until now. Being the pragmatic woman she is, Memiel immediately suggested checking the security footage, given the severity of the matter. Fail agreed without hesitation, though he was visibly shaken. Meanwhile, my husband sat in stunned silence, trying to process everything. We accessed the footage through their security app, and what we saw removed any doubt. The video clearly showed Sile handing me the plate, followed by everything that unfolded afterward. The evidence was undeniable. As the realization sank in, emotions ran high. My husband, now fully aware of his sister's malicious intentions, struggled to contain his rage. Mil and Fail were horrified by their daughter's actions. Seeing the extent of her cruelty left them utterly devastated. Stunned, we sat there, trying to comprehend why she would go to such extremes. Given the gravity of the situation, my in-laws have decided to hand the footage over to the authorities. Since Jamie is the one directly affected, it will be up to him to press charges. Phil and my husband plan to visit him once he has recovered to discuss the next steps. Every time I think about how I unknowingly handed Jamie a poisoned plate, I feel sick with guilt. I have no idea how he will react, and the uncertainty is eating away at me. I can barely eat or sleep. I will update you all if anything significant happens. Update 3. All right, everyone, I'm back with an update. I know it's been a month since my last one, but as a pregnant woman dealing with all of this, it's been overwhelming. First things first, Eel was arrested. After reviewing the security footage, my in-laws handed it over to the police. When confronted with the evidence, Kayla confessed immediately. She didn't even try to deny it. She broke down in tears. Jamie was just as shocked as the rest of us when my husband explained everything. We reassured him that no matter what he chose to do, he would always be part of our family. However, my husband strongly urged him to press charges against his sister, as what she did was beyond cruel. Once Jamie fully recovers, the next steps will be up to him. He not only opted to press charges, but also pursued a divorce. Overcome with emotion, Kayla desperately pleaded for forgiveness, reaching out to Mill and Phil. As fate would have it, Kayla was pregnant herself. She attempted to sway them by insisting they should intervene for the sake of their granddaughter, begging them to secure her release. However, Fell firmly told her it was time she took responsibility for her actions, and they were finished shielding her from consequences. Though Mill was deeply saddened by her daughter's situation, she understood that Kayla's choices could not simply be excused. Authorities uncovered undeniable evidence that she had tampered with the meal intended for me, an act that disastrously backfired, harming her own husband instead. As a result, she faced multiple charges, including endangerment, causing bodily harm, and food contamination, thereby violating public safety. Despite everything, Kayla continuously insisted that I was to blame. She implored Jamie not to take legal action against her, but fortunately, his mind was made up. He was determined to see justice served. Her court proceedings are set to commence soon, and I highly doubt she will escape accountability this time. As for my son and me, we are doing well. For those asking, he remains unaware of what his aunt has done. Harry and I have agreed that, at the right time, we will sit him down and reveal the truth. It will be a tough but absolutely necessary conversation, one that cannot be avoided. Following my doctor's advice, I undergo regular ultrasounds every 2 weeks. We've chosen to keep the baby's gender a surprise, eager to embrace the unknown. Meanwhile, my parents have been especially protective, urging me to seek therapy, concerned that this traumatic experience might take a toll on my mental well-being during pregnancy. I understand their concern. While I seem fine on the surface, I've developed an intense fear of food prepared by others. I refuse to eat anything I haven't personally made, a lingering paranoia from Kayla's actions. Hopefully, with my husband's unwavering support, I will be able to overcome this irrational anxiety. Update, 8 months later. Kayla is currently incarcerated. She was found guilty of the charges, though I never attended her court hearings. Occasionally, my in-laws would update me, sharing how she finally admitted to the court that she had harbored jealousy toward me for years. Kayla had always envisioned one of her close friends marrying my husband, so when he chose me, she resented my presence and made every effort to belittle me, unwilling to accept an outsider as her brother's wife. Her jealousy intensified when, at Harry's birthday celebration, we announced our pregnancy. As it turned out, she had planned to reveal her own pregnancy that same evening. Having previously suffered a miscarriage, she longed to share her joyful news, but instead, she felt overshadowed, convinced we had stolen her moment in the spotlight. Overcome with rage and hormonal fluctuations from her pregnancy, she resorted to an unthinkable act, mixing a small amount of rat poison into my food. Her intention, she claimed, was merely to make me ill and hospitalize me, never to cause actual harm to me or my unborn child. She argued that she deserved a lesser sentence because she had not anticipated that I would offer my plate to her husband, essentially making me the one who poisoned him. Of course, the judge saw through her excuses. She was sentenced to prison and will remain out of our lives for a considerable time. Jamie, now free from her grasp, has officially divorced her. Over the past months, we've continued to include him in family gatherings whenever possible. During one of our conversations, I apologized profusely for handing my plate to him, revealing how I had replayed the moment in my mind repeatedly, wishing I could have done things differently to prevent his suffering. He reassured me, insisting that it was never my fault. Hearing those words lifted a heavy weight off my shoulders, bringing me to tears. Knowing that Jamie is now in a better place makes me deeply relieved. As for Harry and me, our family has grown. We now have a beautiful baby girl. Despite the shadows of the past, her presence has brought warmth and light into our lives. Our son, Nate, is overjoyed to be a big brother and has been incredibly loving and protective of his little sister. Watching our children bond fills us with immense gratitude. Through everything, our parents and in-laws have been a pillar of strength, guiding us as we navigate this new chapter of our lives. Thank you for watching. If you haven't subscribed yet, please do so and tap the notification bell to stay updated with more shocking real-life stories happening around you.